Good afternoon, everyone. The last few days have brought a wave of important developments for the Detroit Lions, and while there is plenty of reason for optimism, there are also a few situations that every fan should be paying close attention to because they could influence how this team develops throughout training camp. The biggest concern right now revolves around the rookie class. The good news is that despite several injuries, nothing reported so far appears to be season-threatening. Instead, the focus is on making sure these young players do not lose valuable development time during one of the most important periods of their NFL careers. Let's start with Derek Moore. According to the latest update, he is expected to miss somewhere between 7 and 10 days because of a minor strain. While no injury is good news during training camp, this appears to be relatively minor. The biggest concern is not necessarily his availability for the regular season, but rather the fact that every missed practice is one less opportunity to learn the defensive system, improve his technique, and build chemistry with his teammates. Fortunately for Detroit, Moore plays a position where the long-term outlook is much more important than missing 1 week of camp. If everything goes according to plan, he should return shortly and continue his progression without any major setbacks. Another rookie dealing with an injury is Jimmy Rolder, who is currently sidelined with a hamstring issue. Anyone who follows football knows hamstring injuries are among the most unpredictable problems a player can have. Recovery timelines can vary significantly, making it impossible to know exactly when he will return. While there is optimism that he will contribute at some point during the season, there is no denying that missing training camp slows his development. Learning an NFL defense is already difficult for a rookie linebacker, and losing valuable practice repetitions only makes that challenge greater. Still, there is some comfort knowing Detroit recently strengthened the linebacker room with another experienced veteran, reducing the immediate pressure on the rookie. There is also encouraging news regarding Blake Miller. Unlike some of the other rookies dealing with setbacks, Miller is expected to practice, avoiding what could have become another concern for Detroit's coaching staff. Having him back on the field is important because offensive line development depends heavily on repetition, technique, and communication. Every healthy practice gives him another opportunity to grow. Meanwhile, tight end Miles Keitelman will be unavailable for a while. Head coach Dan Campbell confirmed the absence, but did not specify the nature of the injury. Although the exact details remain unknown, this serves as another reminder that the transition from college football to the NFL is incredibly demanding. Every year, rookies arrive with tremendous talent, but the physical demands of professional football are on another level. Soft tissue injuries during this adjustment period are unfortunately common, even if they are frustrating for both players and fans. The encouraging part is that none of these reported injuries currently appear catastrophic. They are certainly disappointing because development time cannot be replaced, but there is still every reason to believe these young players can recover and continue contributing later in the year. That distinction matters because there is a major difference between missing a week or two of training camp and suffering an injury that completely changes a rookie season. While the injury report created some concern, Detroit answered one important question by adding veteran linebacker Devin White. His arrival immediately changes the conversation surrounding this defense, not only because of his experience, but because of the mentality he brings into the locker room. After joining the Lions, White made it clear what stood out to him almost immediately. He talked about seeing a team that already understands situational football, a roster that works hard every single day, and a culture where players expect maximum effort from everyone. According to White, when he asked teammates about the standard inside the organization, the answer was simple: everybody goes all out. Hearing that from an accomplished veteran says a lot about what Dan Campbell and the coaching staff have built in Detroit. Perhaps even more importantly, White explained why Detroit was the destination he wanted. Coming off what he described as the first losing season of his football career dating all the way back to his childhood, he wanted to put himself in a position to compete immediately. Rather than joining a rebuilding franchise, he specifically wanted a team with legitimate aspirations of winning now. That mindset should excite every Lions fan because it reflects how the rest of the league now views Detroit. Veteran players are no longer looking at the Lions as a rebuilding project. They see a team capable of competing. On the field, White also fills an important role. Pairing him with Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes gives Detroit a much stronger linebacker group. There is confidence that once White becomes fully comfortable in the defensive system, he will make a significant impact. His arrival also also adds another experienced voice to a defense that is trying to take the next step after showing flashes but still needing greater consistency. When looking at the front seven as a whole, there is growing optimism, with Aleem McNeil working toward returning to form, Tyreek Williams continuing his development, Aiden Hutchinson receiving additional help along the defensive line, Derek Moore expected back after his minor injury, and Levi Onwuzurike generating positive expectations while healthy. There are legitimate reasons to believe this unit has the potential to become one of Detroit's strengths. Questions may still remain in other areas of the defense, but the foundation up front appears to be getting stronger with every passing practice. As training camp continues, these storylines become even more interesting because the health of the rookie class and the impact of Devin White could shape the direction of the defense throughout the season. If the young players recover quickly while the veterans continue establishing the culture that's being praised inside the building, the Lions may be positioning themselves for something special. So now the question goes directly to you. After seeing the rookie injury updates and hearing everything Devin White had to say about why he chose Detroit and how he views this team's culture, do you believe the Lions defense is heading in the right direction, or do you still think there are concerns that need to be addressed before the regular season begins? One of the biggest reasons for that growing confidence is that the coaching staff finally appears to have the kind of depth they've been trying to build for several seasons. Injuries are inevitable in the NFL. Every team goes through them. The difference between good teams and championship contenders is how well they survive those difficult stretches without seeing a dramatic drop in performance. That is exactly why Sunday's practice generated so much attention. Several players who are not necessarily expected to headline every game still managed to stand out in a very positive way. On the offensive line, Miles Frazier and Larry Borom reportedly had impressive performances, reinforcing the belief that Detroit's depth across the offensive front is much stronger than it was a year ago. That is incredibly significant because offensive line injuries can completely derail an offense. Last season, whenever backups had to step into major roles, there was concern about how large the drop-off would be. This year, however, there is growing confidence that Detroit has built a much more reliable second unit. If Larry Borom is asked to step into the lineup for a game, there is increasing belief that he can handle the responsibility. The same goes for Miles Frazier. Instead of hoping the starters stay healthy simply because there are no trustworthy alternatives, the Lions appear to have assembled a group capable of keeping the offense functioning if injuries occur. That may not generate the same excitement as a big free agent signing or a first-round draft pick, but championships are often won because teams have dependable depth in the trenches. The defensive line also continued to receive encouraging reports. Levi Onwuzurike was once again mentioned among the players making an impact during practice. His health remains one of the biggest storylines for Detroit because everyone knows what he is capable of when he is available. Before his injury setback, he had shown exactly why the Lions believed in his talent. Now, with another opportunity to prove himself, he is once again creating positive impressions early in camp. Ahmed Hassanein also continues moving in the right direction. Reports indicate he has added muscle while continuing to develop exactly as the coaching staff hoped. Nobody expects him to immediately become a full-time starter, but every successful NFL team depends on rotational players who can contribute when called upon. Hassanein appears to be building toward becoming exactly that kind of contributor. Development is rarely linear, but every positive practice gives Detroit another reason to believe they are building quality depth for the future. The secondary also produced some encouraging performances. Rock Ya-Sin continued showing the consistency expected from a veteran cornerback. He may not always generate headlines, but dependable veterans often become extremely valuable throughout a long season. The coaching staff knows what they are getting from him, and every solid practice strengthens his case to remain an important part of the defensive rotation. Keith Abney was another player receiving positive attention. Training camp is exactly where young players can begin separating themselves from the rest of the roster. Every interception, every pass breakup, every strong coverage rep matters when coaches start making difficult roster decisions. While established veterans usually enter camp with an advantage, performances like these give younger players an opportunity to force themselves into the conversation. There also appears to be an ongoing competition within the cornerback room. As practices continue, players are battling for opportunities, and every rep becomes increasingly important. Competition is one of the healthiest signs for any football team because it pushes every player to improve. Nobody is guaranteed a role simply because of reputation. Every day on the practice field becomes another audition. Perhaps one of the most intriguing intriguing developments, though, involves an undrafted rookie who is quietly beginning to attract attention. Defensive lineman Aiden Keeney has started generating positive reviews after working his way into second-team repetitions during training camp. According to observations from camp, he has already flashed the ability to create interior pressure, something every NFL defense values tremendously. That alone makes him a player worth watching. Interior defensive linemen who consistently collapse the pocket are difficult to find, especially among undrafted free agents. The fact that Keeney is already earning additional opportunities suggests the coaching staff wants to see whether those early flashes can translate once practices become more physical. There is another reason why his performance has people paying attention. During his final season at California, Keeney recorded an impressive 101 tackles while playing on the interior defensive line. That kind of production from that position immediately stands out because defensive tackles typically occupy blockers rather than accumulate huge tackle numbers. His college production demonstrates activity, effort, and an ability to consistently find the football. Now comes the true test. Early training camp practices are valuable, but everyone inside the NFL knows that padded practices reveal much more about a player. Once the pads come on,